Oh, man.
Uh,
There was a guy that lived up the block from me, this guy, Jimmy. Young kid. I mean, I was a little kid at the time. I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old. You know, he was probably in his early 20s, married, had a kid, lived in the first house. And he had a 61 Chevy Biscayne. And Jimmy used to like to, tee it up after work.
oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, which was, back then was
An
a
acceptable
lot
form
more
of
common.
relaxation. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot more. So one night, Jimmy, with his Biscayne, 61 Biscayne gray. I'll never forget this car. 3-speed stick. Probably was doing about 60 miles an hour on the Triborough Bridge. And there was one of these wood construction. Remember the old wood construction barriers
Yes. What a
that
terrible idea that was.
yeah, that they would have like 4 pieces of black and white striped wood.
Yeah.
And Jimmy is going over the Triborough Bridge and he hits one of these construction barriers.
The way he put it, he said he was inconvenienced.
He was inconvenienced. It was
Yeah.
close to his lane. He hit this thing and caught the end of one of the wood cross beams.
Oh
And
God.
that thing was like a 3x3. They wouldn't screw around with those things.
They had plenty of wood and they were using it.
Yeah, and it caught the car under the fender and rammed into the passenger side of the car, came through the passenger compartment up by the floorboard,
Wow.
ripped half of the seat out, and the front of the beam was in the back seat.
That's where he stopped.
So it impaired. No, he drove the car home with the beam in it.
Cut it up and used it for firewood.
I remember going up the block the next day, and his car is sitting like kind of this, like one side of the front is down,
It was still
and
running, but it was modified.
yeah, and I looked at it, and holy crap, what the heck did you do? And he caught this beam, man, and it. I mean, if anybody would have been sitting in that seat, they would have been killed.
Oh yes.
But you know, Jimmy probably never even hit the brake. He just
Jimmy said, I'm gonna have to see your pop about this one."
he drove. Yeah, he did actually. He wound up driving it to my father's gas station, and my father looked at him and said, "We ain't fixing this. This is
You need a body expert and a surgeon.
yeah. You need a tree surgeon here. You need to call Asplund or something. I can't do anything for you." But it was an indicator of how good some of those cars were built. That you hit that thing in that manner, and you would be okay.
Incredible.
Many times, other times not. I mean, it all depended. The other side of that coin was they had non-collapsible steering columns, so as if you hit somebody hard and you were behind the wheel, usually that metal horn ring would shear off and just catch you right in the throat.
Other than that, it was a perfect design.
Well, it
No
was convenient.
complaints.
It was convenient to get to the horn.
And if you missed the horn, there was always the steel dash that was waiting for you.
Right. There was always if you missed the horn, there was the steering column itself
Which was like a
and the wheel, which was made not out of a softer material like they do today, but a hard plastic with a metal ring inside of it to help
it
it
was
keep shape. So if you were doing 60 miles an hour and you hit somebody, a lot of times what would happen with the force of your body on the way to go into the dashboard to be split in half would knock that top of the steering wheel down, depending on where it was
mhm.
in the car. But your body usually would fold that steering wheel over, and that metal rod that was in there for support of the steering wheel would pop up and catch you in the chest. At the same time, the horn ring was catching you in the throat.
So Detroit gave it a lot of thought. They said, if we miss them with this, we'll get them with that.
And there was a third, talk about redundant systems, because the steering column didn't collapse. It just was bolted. It was virtually, a 3-foot piece of pipe bolted to a steering box. That if you were going fast enough, that was bolted. The coupler for those two pieces was a piece of asbestos material.
Great. Had to be
So
asbestos.
if you were doing, again, 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, and you hit that steering box, that coupler would break. And the force of the collision would drive the whole steering column up through the dashboard because it's only held on by 2 bolts. And usually right through your chest.
So the people of Detroit, the automotive industry, they were not offering entertainment in a way to get to the store. They were building death machines intentionally intended to kill the driver and their customer.
Yeah, pretty much so. I mean, we make a lot of jokes in this country. We used to, not so much anymore, but we used to make a lot of jokes about Ralph Nader. And people forget that it was his book, Unsafe at Any Speed, that impacted the auto industry so much.
But they knew.
Yeah, they knew. They knew what they were doing. You could not know. It's just that to fix those things would cost money, and they couldn't keep the price of the car down. They couldn't make as much profit on the car, and we know what happens. Now times are.
But they fought. They paid lawyers. They wouldn't change the design, but they fought Ralph Nader tooth and nail.
Some of them did. Some of them, to their credit, you could buy a padded dashboard. Probably after 1950, I think Chevy probably had it. 58 was the first year that you could, spend $6 for it. But the company's philosophy was, to their salesmen and to people that were buying the car, we're not going to advertise safety.
Because that implies that we're unsafe.
Right, it implies we're unsafe. So we're not going to tell you about, or we're not even going to tell you about the dual master cylinder that you could buy for $4 extra, or whatever it is, or the disc brakes that you can have put on the car for X amount of dollars, or the collapsible steering column that we've developed that when your body hits it or it hits you, it folds. It doesn't bear the full weight of the impact. So
I wonder how many pilots, test drivers they killed trying to figure that out.
Well, I mean, a lot of people were killed. But again, these cars were, you get into I mean, you could buy a car without seatbelts until 1965 or 68, I forget. So, things like where the taillights were on a car, you could sink them down under the bumper. There was no federal standard. Nowadays, you can't, taillights, something as simple as taillights, according to federal law, have to be on the body of the car. They can't be on the trunk lid. They can't be on the deck lid. The brake light, the tail light, and the directional signal must be on the body of the car.
I remember when they first started with the directional signals, like 1953, your lights wouldn't blink. You had a signal or just take your chances. There was an add-on thing that said on
You
the
did hand
steering column
signals.
when they were brand new. I remember those were so cool,
You had to
or I thought they
you,
were.
you had to know hand signals to pass the driver's test.
By the way, I have to take my driver's test on the 23rd. The written test in California is famous for its trick questions, so I'm
Oh
studying.
yeah, yes, yes. The only written test I ever failed was in California.
It's meant to fail you.
Yeah, yeah. And it, I was 16 when I took it.
I was going to use the questions on our show so we could give each other the questions, but the answers are so long and complicated and arcane that it would have been the worst show we ever did, and you'd still gotten it wrong. So
Yeah, yeah. It's although some jurisdictions, I think in New York now, you don't have to take a written test. Again, when I think they're making it now once you're past 75 or something like that. But you don't even have to go in to renew your driver's license anymore. You don't have to take an eye test.
well, I have to take an eye test.
In New York, I'm talking about. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I
California
see.
still has some sense about it. But yeah, it's yeah, safety equipment in cars. I mean, the car makers fought that, and listen, Nader made some mistakes too. There were cars that were put out there that were really too intelligent for people. They were so diverse and different in what Americans were used to in cars that they wound up crashing them. One of those, famously, was the Corvair. Um,
Why
the
was that
Corvair,
so? Why was it non-intuitive?
it had an independent rear suspension, and the weighting of the car was different because the engine was in the back and had
Mhm.
a heavier engine.
And
And
that was a light car.
and it was a light car, and people weren't used to maneuvering a car around a curve like that. Some people. Now, again, I don't know that the Corvair had many more accidents than any other car,
It had a reputation.
but it had a reputation because of the comedian Ernie Kovacs, who was killed driving one. And Ralph
Wow.
Nader keyed on that and used that as media manipulation to to bring about the change that he felt, and rightly so, probably
Ernie,
felt necessary.
Ernie Kovacs had a character, the poet Percy Love Tonsils.
It's funny. I never really got Ernie Kovacs as much as I did other comedians of the day.
It was easy for a lot of his stuff to go right by you.
Yeah,
He didn't care if it was too subtle for humor.
yeah. I don't even think it was subtlety, Michael. There was something about him that I just didn't find funny.
Well,
Yeah,
he would do the Nairobi Quartet or the Nairobi Trio, and it
yeah,
was three chimpanzees playing a song, but they played the whole damn song.
yeah. Some stuff was good, and
It
I
didn't
give
get
him
any
points for
funnier.
marrying Edie Adams alone.
Well,
Uh,
that turned out to be entertaining at least.
yeah. Um, but I just never, I've gone back and watched some of the stuff that's available and some of his, and it just never, it never hit me in the way other comics of the day. And listen, I'm a fan of intelligent comics. I mean, I love Mort Saul. I love Professor Erwin Corey, who was
But
probably the last.
Ernie Kovacs would be silly sometimes, and it wouldn't be funny.
Yeah, yeah, but it just didn't hit me. Alan King, Jackie Leonard, his contemporaries.
Jackie Vernon, now he was funny.
Jackie Vernon was funny just by virtue of standing there.
Yeah, he didn't have to do anything to be funny.
He would stand, deadpan and tell a joke, and it would be and the joke would be funny, but he was funny. Nipsey Russell. he was a funny dude. You could go, Flip Wilson. You could imagine going to a party at their house and them standing there and being funny.
Yep.
I don't know. Kovacs didn't remind me of somebody. Mike Gage, I think on those days of a cool party was at Rob and Laura Petrie's house.
Oh my goodness.
They had cool parties, because they had, everybody that they invited over had talent, Buddy and Sally,
Right.
obviously Rob and Laura, even his neighbor, the dentist, Jerry and Millie, um, who was played by Jerry Paris and Ann Morgan Gilbert, um, were funny. They had it to everybody on the block had a routine.
You had to be funny to hang with that crowd.
Yeah, you had to be funny. And, Mel Cooley was funny. I mean, that was the standard if you watched TV in the 60s of the kind of party you wanted to go to. You wanted to hang at, as a little kid watching it. Then after that, it kind of turned into the party at Paul Simon's house in Annie Hall was the party that you wanted to go to.
And room the cocaine.
Yeah, with Jeff Goldblum just standing there. I mean, that was a great. But there were movies that had TV shows that had parties, and you wanted your party. That's the party you wanted to go to. And
The
the
party of the
Petri,
first part. The party of the first part.
yes, yes. The Petries had that. They had the best parties on television, I thought.
And the funny thing about Rob is that he was the least funny of them all. He had
Right,
physical aspects of funny, but he was not. You didn't need him to be funny to make the story work.
right. He was funny in virtue of his physical. He was. I mean, I don't know that people realize how great a physical comic Dick Van Dyke is, or was back then, certainly.
He doesn't,
Um,
he doesn't trip over the ottoman as often, but he still goes down regularly.
yeah, I mean, he could do something. He could make a move. There's one scene in one show I remember seeing where he's trying to put a pencil in a pencil cup, and watching him put a pencil in a pencil cup for 30 seconds might be the funniest part of the show. Because he can't, he can't get it in there right. He puts it in and it bounces out. He puts it in and it bounces. He's playing catch with the pencil.
I'd have to check to find out if which came first, but did his work with Disney for Mary Poppins and all that come before or after?
I think the Dick Van Dyke Show started in 1961, I believe. So
And
that
Mary
would have been
Poppins,
pre,
yeah, pre Mary Poppins.
because Bye Bye Birdie was what, 63?
Bye Bye Birdie is a good example of adults trying to write a rock and roll show.
Right, right,
The least convincing part of that story was the rock and roll part.
right. But Dick Van Dyke and Paul Lynde in the same movie was pretty funny.
Paul Lynde works.
Paul Lynde was funny, in just almost anything he did. I don't think I've ever seen Paul Lynde uh, be unfunny.
What was he like when he was 14, growing up and cutting up in seventh grade?
There's a documentary that's on. They did a documentary about him a few years ago, and I watched it during COVID, and I've kind of forgotten. I'd have to go back and look at it again. But I remember it being pretty funny.
I imagine he had
I,
to be.
mixed up with some sadness. I mean, there was some kind of tragedy that went on there. I forget what it was. I don't know if his father died. Some major death, I think. And of course, he dealt with it by, becoming funny.
Yep. Don't we all?
And he was, yeah, and he was, again, another guy who, just knew the right word to say at the right time. Maybe one of the best ad-libbers
Yep.
that you've seen. And I mean, could also do sketch comedy as well. It was great at when he was in what did he play? The uncle in Bewitched.
Oh yes.
Yeah, remember? He was pretty. I mean, he was pretty funny. Um, and it was, yeah, he was. What the heck is that? Somebody was just heard something go crash outside. Um,
That happened to me once when I was on the radio in Wenatchee, and it was the one of the staff members taking out the station car and wrecking it right in front of the station. The KPQ Reds, you hear right in front of the station, and I couldn't see it. So what the hell was that? And my guest looked out there and said, "It was your station car." I go, "Oh dear, we're going to be hearing about that." But not a word, not a memo, not a. I'm so sorry this happened.
that,
Accidents
that,
happen. It could have happened to anybody. Not a word.
not even a all staff. Sherman Podnick is
When
no
pulling
longer
away from the
employed
curb,
by the
look both
station.
ways. Yeah.
we wish him we wish him well after he pays the $1,258 for the new front bumper and grill.
I don't know how it happened, but it happened.
Yes,
It was good fun. Good fun to wreck the station car. You know, KFRC had a contest called Guess the Mileage on the XKE. And the joke was the disc jockeys would drive the XKE around town. You'd see them coming. You'd see them in certain neighborhoods. They'd call in and say, I'm up at Twin Peaks. I'm in Daly City or wherever it is. And the disc jockey named Howard Clark took it down to the Embarcadero and stacked it up before they could give it away. They had to start the contest over again with another XKE because the previous one had been destroyed.
Don Sherwood.
Does anybody want this XKE or would you want the new one?
And Sherwood also do a Corvette. At one point, I heard from somebody. I remember somebody telling me um, that he piled up a Corvette. I think on Bush Street. That
Probably
was
right outside of KFRC.
yeah. That was a trade he was driving or something, probably from Ellis Brooks.
There used to be a Pontiac dealer called Arata Pontiac,
Yeah, I remember around a Pontiac.
and Sherwood always said Arata tat tat.
What in Burlingame, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Arata tat tat.
yeah. That was a long line of DJs that have piled up either station cards or news people that have.
Our
Um,
general manager at the Rocker, KRQ Orange Ever Cisco, was reluctant to get a van, but he finally got one, and he worked long and hard on the trade out. And so our van, the only van in town, was Rock and Roll Brown. It was just the most nondescript, foul-looking brown colored van, and we called it Rock and Roll Brown. And the general manager George Sawson was livid with us. He had gone to all the trouble to get us a van that was, of course, the wrong color. The Rocker. Here we come in our brown van, our brown Chevy van with nothing in it, just two seats in the front and no amenities, no tent to put up, no banner to hang, nothing, just a brown van. Good
it was
God.
a good place to sleep. If you came into
No,
the state
it
for
had
jazz.
those corrugated rails down the middle of the thing. You couldn't
Ah,
sleep on that.
oh man, we had somebody, one of our promotion assistants at the station I worked at was had fallen on some hard times. I think he'd been thrown out by their roommate, and I'm pretty sure spent a week, maybe even two,
In the
in the
van.
promotions van in the garage. They would come up to the station and take a shower, early in the morning because the station had a shower.
Be the first one to work.
Yeah, first one at work, but they were living in the promotions van, and I remember. And the reason I remember this is because they had all that stuff in the van, and somebody took the van out on a promotion, not knowing that those boxes back there is somebody's life.
We gave away a bunch of clothes. It seemed the right thing to do. We were out of
Yeah,
sandwiches. Yeah.
bunch of homeless people on the way to this station event we did. So you see somebody walking down the street with a Cairo jacket on.
As you probably saw on Facebook this weekend, it was National DJ Day on Friday or Saturday or whatever it was. And I was going to
I
ask
did. I think
you,
it was Saturday.
who was your favorite DJ?
Well, who was my favorite DJ?
Yeah, you grew up with listening to a lot of great ones.
Yeah. Wow. It's always been a tough question for me because there were things of many DJs that I really liked. I think Cousin Brucey was
An
was
obvious
one,
choice.
probably my most favorite, you know, um, AM DJ. But I also really liked uh, um, Charlie Greer,
Hmm.
who used to be on the overnights on ABC. Because he had the luxury on ABC of talking more and being able to engage with the audience more. And I really liked, Brucey engaged with the audience, still does, but did it in kind of a clown manner.
Yeah, lots of energy.
Like the cousins, he had a shtick. Charlie just seemed to be like he liked just sitting there and talking to people. I'm sure that I don't know where he wound up or anything like that, but I could imagine that Charlie did talk radio at some point.
Yeah.
Um, Also, Alex Bennett.
I never got to
Um,
hear Alex a lot because I was always opposite him the whole time.
well, this is when Alex was on PLJ. He was the weekend overnight guy on PLJ. First, he was on WMCA, and then he moved over to WPLJ. So he took calls on Friday and Saturday nights, and would talk
And
to
that was
people.
that was new at that time.
Yeah, no,
That
stations didn't
that,
do
that
that at that
concept.
time.
Right.
Yeah, stations didn't, but he did. He played music, obviously, so he was a DJ, not a talk show host. But he also did. He also took calls in between records. Um, and people would call up, and so he was fairly. It wasn't like a set topic. It was really just people calling up and kind of a pulse of the city kind of thing. He might have gotten a call from somebody who was standing online at the Mud Club,
Oh yeah.
waiting to go in and see something, or somebody in Times Square, or, I mean, it was enough where you didn't really have to put topics out there. You could just, people would call in to get on the radio. But if you had a good enough producer that they would, what do you call it? They would, there would just be enough going on that whoever was calling up was interesting. I don't know that you could do a show like that in, Podunk, Iowa, or
Gary,
something.
Indiana.
Yeah. Now we got a guy that just called in and said, "I remember a contest you guys tried to do years ago. Vinnie wanted someone to bring their car to the station in Seattle on a really nice day, and wanted them to cut the top off the car for Sonics tickets."
I
Well,
remember that.
oh yeah, no, I remember that. You were on. It wasn't Sonics tickets. It was the NCAA finals,
Final Four.
the Final Four when it was here. You were on vacation, and I was co-hosting a show that week, I think 3 days. I co-hosted it with uh, uh, oh man, the old Marquette, McGuire, the Marquette coach. It wasn't the Marquette coach, but the CBS guy, Al McGuire, came in, and then the other 2 days were Rod Simons, the late Rod
Aha.
Simons.
Right.
And it was a beautiful day, and I said to, I think, if I'm remembering this all right, I said, okay, let's do a contest. The person who's willing to come to the station and cut the top of their car off and make it a convertible, we give you a pair of tickets. And I remember this guy showed up with a Capri, a Ford Capri, and put it in the parking lot that was between 190
Right. Oh yeah, right
and
next door.
the gas station, and had a sawzall.
That'll do it.
Went in and plugged it in the garage, and he was out in the parking lot. And I remember Carl Weinstein and Tom Lee looked like they were both going to have heart attacks.
Did we run this by legal? Didn't run it by anybody.
I don't know anybody. Just told somebody to come down, and if you wanted these tickets, cut the top of your car off.
Actually, it wasn't his car. That turned out to be the problem.
Well, that was one of the things that was brought up in the post-promotion meeting.
It's always good to have a post-promotion meeting. Vinny, we should have had this meeting before we cut the car to pieces.
You probably should have asked somebody about this one, but what did I know?
I asked Al McGuire. He thought it was cool.
Al McGuire was up for anything. Al McGuire was cool. I had a lot of fun hosting that week with that guy. He was funny. We were two New York guys, man, just rapping and flapping about high schools and stars and people and bars. I mean, Al McGuire knew every bar on Queens Boulevard.
And every bar on 8th Avenue that had sawdust.
Yeah, he knew the city was a New York boy, man. You don't move somebody to Milwaukee and
I have a question about New York. It has to do with the Steely Dan song. And the lyric is, "You were late at Bayside. There was nothing I could do. So I pointed my car down 7th Avenue." And I always loved that lyric because it was sort of melancholy. It's like they were supposed to meet, they didn't, so he left without her.
Yeah.
But is Bayside in Queens?
Bayside is in Queens, and as far as I know, there's no 7th Avenue in Bayside. I think the numbers run, the street numbers run in probably the 200s, 190s.
So the 7th Avenue is in Manhattan.
Well, there's the 7th Avenue in Queens too, but I believe it's in Whitestone. I don't know that well, we can always look, but I don't know that there's a 7th Avenue in Bayside. It seems to me that would go down by Fort Totten, would be 7th Avenue down in that area, which is the northernmost part of Bayside.
If I ever meet Donald Fagen, I'll ask him about that.
Well, when you meet him and ask him about that, please also ask him about the lyrics to "Brooklyn Owes the Charmer," because that's another one which lyrics are...
they don't add up to a New Yorker yet?
Well, yeah, they just... I mean, the really big thing is, what's the song about? Is it about a snake charmer? Is it about a guy who's a charmer? I mean, there's a certain kind of guy in New York who is known as a charmer. He's usually a ladies' man.
Yes, yes.
He's a slick guy,
a confidence trickster.
Yeah, no. He's just he can charm you out of anything. So yeah, in that sense, he is.
You can charm the
Uh,
roof right off your Chevy Nova.
right. Charm the pants off your girlfriend. I mean, and I remember seeing this whole monologue, and I used to think I was like one of the only ones that were confused about this song and didn't really understand it. And then I was watching a video one night, and um,
Yes, the
Amy Mann,
singer
who was
songwriter.
yeah, was great songwriter, was around in the 70s and 80s. I think probably more the 80s. Was doing a live set. She does that song, and she went into this whole rap about talking to Fagin about that song because it was always one of her, like mine, favorite Steely Dan songs,
Right.
and saying that even after Fagin explained it to her,
She still had some doubts.
she still didn't quite get what the song was about.
This is not unusual for Steely Dan songs, as you know.
Yeah, as best she could figure out, it was a guy that lived in the
Brooklyn.
same building that they did.
Ah,
Um, Now I don't know because for a while they lived in Jackson Heights. I think I think I think Fagin lived in Jackson. I don't know if Becker and Fagin lived there together. I think Becker might have lived in Forest Hills, but Fagin lived in Jackson Heights for a while because he used to come into the record store. Um,
came into your record store?
oh yeah, we had a bunch of people used to come into the record store. Gene Simmons used to come in.
Did he lick stuff?
Fagin,
Did he lick things? Gene Simmons?
not that I remember. He wasn't even really Gene Simmons then. He was like Kolakowski, or I forget his name, but he spoke.
Moshe
He had
Cohen.
like an accent,
Yeah.
But he was a guy in the neighborhood. I
Jewish kid
mean,
with an accent.
he was one. He was one of we had the rods and the mods and the rockers, and he was one of the rockers. He hung out with we had a bunch of musicians in the neighborhood. Jackson Heights always had musicians living in it. Um, who you call it? Balistrero from The Wrong Man lived in Jackson Heights.
I see. Well,
Uh,
what was the name of your record store?
Record Spectacular.
Spectacular.
Records Spectacular. It um and then it moved across the street and became Record Room. Probably in 77, something like that, 76, somewhere around there. Um, yeah, just went across the street and became Record Room. And I mean, I've often told stories about the record store. As a matter of fact, I'm still in touch with the guy who owned it. Was one of the partners. His daughter. We still talk, a couple of times
Yes,
a week.
you've mentioned her.
Yeah, yeah. She was. It was a wild place. It was. Some people hung out in candy stores. We hung out in a in a record store.
And you could read the albums. That was the best part.
Read the liner notes.
The who was in charge of playing the music in the store?
Well, we had Billy was in charge of playing the music. Billy was Bob was the guy that owned the store. Was the main partner. There was a bunch of different guys that partners there. Two guys really, but um, they had several stores. So at some point, this was the main store. This was the first store, and then they moved out. And then Billy, who was the owner's cousin, um, ran the store, and he had final say over whatever was being played. But it was kind of a group effort. I mean, you could, if you were hanging out, you could say, hey, can we play this? Can we play that? Can we play this? And at one time, I worked in the store behind the counter on Sunday mornings for a long time. When we first started opening on Sundays, and I used to work with this guy Rob McKenna and this other guy Frankie, and we used to play Name That Tune all the time.
Oh yeah.
And they could never beat me. And basically I knew everything because I knew all of the oldies. And I could go in and pick something out of the what we call the greens, which were the back stock of 45s.
Reissues.
No. They were. You don't display. You had the on the board behind the counter. You had the top 50.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was like a browser in front of that, and anything that was like 51 to 100 was in that browser, and also
Bubbling under.
probably one of everything in the town hall catalog. You didn't have a lot of compilations in those days. The only
No.
compilations that were really around were the Art LeBeau oldies but goodies.
On oldies but goodies records.
On oldies but goodie records, there wasn't a lot of even Roulette and stuff hadn't put out huge compilations at that point. So you pretty much you pretty much you bought 45s.
Right.
And then they started coming out with the dual-sided 45.
EPs.
No, not EPs. Although there was some EPs, but these were like you'd have I think We're Alone Now from Tommy James and the Shondells on one side of the record. And then on the other side, you might have who would be somebody else on that label? Tommy Rowe.
Jimmy Rogers.
Doing Sweet Pea or something that they owned, that the record company owned the rights to as well. So instead of just giving you a B side, it would be
two A sides.
Two A sides.
It's funny, I always thought Tommy James would have had a better career on another label because he was in a pretty strange record company.
Yeah. Well, he had, despite the record company, he had a pretty good career. He probably would have made a lot more money.
Yeah.
He probably got screwed royally.
On the payments, on the publishing, on everything.
Yeah, because it was but there was a lot of people on Roulette.
Yeah, there were.
That was
some of them hadn't actually signed with the company.
Yeah, there was that. There was that was really a zoo, man. What was that, Mo? I'm trying to remember his name. I can't remember his name.
I can't either. I'm trying to think of it.
Mo.
Morris
Levy.
There you go.
Morris Levy. Thank you. Morris Levy was and my boss at the record store knew him. They were friends. Yeah, there was a lot of really surreptitious stuff going on back then in the record business. There was a lot of interesting.
Well, the NFL is down to 4 teams. Can you name them?
Yes, we are down to 4. Yes, we are. And it causes me a dilemma. So we'll have to talk about this in a minute. But yes, I saw every game except the Buffalo game. And
that one sort of ended in
a sad.
Buffalo just couldn't drive. They couldn't put together the drive they needed.
They couldn't finish it. They couldn't kick the field goal. I mean, it was, the 2 words you never want to hear
Wide right.
In Buffalo is wide right.
And that's what it was, wide right.
And that's exactly what it was. I mean, I'm sure Scott Norwood was probably curled under a table somewhere.
Now they got a new kicker under a table.
Now they got a new guy. And Kansas City lives on to play what I'm starting to think might be the best team. I mean, I just think Baltimore is built for speed, man.
Baltimore has got this thing where the quarterback pulls stuff out of a hat on a regular basis, and you cannot predict it. You can't catch him. You can't stop him. You can't prevent him. The only thing that's going to change that equation is what Al Davis used to say: the quarterback must go down, and he must go down hard.
It's hard to put down, though, man. They got a hell of an offensive line.
It's hard to touch him, put him down. It's hard to grab him.
I mean, there were times in that game on Saturday where he had all day.
Yep.
I mean, he was standing there and nobody's coming near him. You know, basically
last game of the season, his backup played, and the Baltimore Ravens turned into an ordinary team that had ordinary problems.
Huntley, I think his name was, or something. Yeah.
And of course, it makes sense to rush your quarterback, but it just shows you that team is more the result of the quarterback's talents than any other team of the four. So Baltimore, Kansas City, Detroit, and San Francisco, and we just have to hope that Kansas City can beat the Baltimore guys, because Baltimore's already beat the 49ers this year.
Yeah, I don't. Well, here's my dilemma, and I know that you're gonna be upset with me about this. I can already feel it coming. I can feel the heat from your eyes. Already, I can feel the look. And you know that I love the 49ers. And, you know, I was a 49er fan for a long time. Still am. You know, I still have a special place in my heart for the 49ers. But 49ers have gone to the Super Bowl many times.
Yep.
49ers have 6 rings or 5?
5.
5. Yeah, right. The Steelers and New England have 6. So the 49ers have been there.
And who beat Colin Kaepernick at the 1-yard line?
They were there as recently as 2 years ago.
It was Kaepernick's last year.
Yeah, so it's more than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
No, weren't they there? I thought they were there like a couple. You know, my memory fails me. So there's a history. You know, people have won in San Francisco. Little children know what it's like for what a Super Bowl party is all about. What an NFC championship game is all about. You know, when you come home.
Detroit, they don't.
In Detroit, the last time they were in the NFC championship game was 1957.
The president was William Henry Harrison.
You still could go to a showroom and buy a Packard or a Studebaker or a DeSoto
or a Nash
or a Plymouth or an Oldsmobile.
Pontiac. Maybe a DeSoto.
A Studebaker Hawk.
Yeah, good car.
You could buy many cars that don't exist today. It was a nickel to ride the subway, and Detroit was arguably one of the most powerful cities in the United States.
7th market in the nation.
In those days, yeah.
Yeah.
And now they've hosted a Super Bowl We were there for it in 2005. It was
But
2006.
there were no Lions there unless they had promo tickets.
Unless Bill Ford handed him a pair of tickets and said, "Make sure you come to the parties." There were no, and you could argue that Detroit is the butt of innumerable jokes, the scene of crime and murder, um, probably more than many, if not all, other cities in this country per capita.
Maybe Chicago leads with murder,
It
or at least
is,
shootings.
yeah, and there are blocks upon blocks of abandoned buildings. The downtown of Detroit, although still not up to what you would call average American city downtownism,
Competitive standards are not
is
reflected in
still
Detroit.
a pretty cool downtown. You have both the football stadium and the baseball stadium, which have been put up there,
And
uh,
hockey.
and hockey, and put up in a way that has revitalized the neighborhood around them. They've actually built housing down there.
Do the Pistons still play in the suburbs?
No, there's
New place downtown?
the Pistons. I think there's an arena down. There's the Joe Louis.
I thought that was hockey.
It's hockey and basketball.
I see. Multi-use.
Yeah,
So you're rooting for Jared Goff. You know, he's got a great Bay Area story, which you're
he's
familiar with.
Marin Catholic guy, and I have to admit that although I like the 49ers, I'm really flirting with
The magic
being
of
on
Detroit. Yeah.
the Detroit bandwagon this week, is jumping on because I'm a softie.
Well, Goff was a top choice out of Cal. He resonated with the Rams for a little while, and then they thought they could do better by bringing in the quarterback from Detroit.
Right, and both have done well for their respective teams that they wound up with, right?
The Rams just don't have the magic that the Lions have right now. And the Lions have a player whose name I love, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right. They just have, and I love the Detroit coach.
Yeah, he's all business.
He's just a straight shooter, and he looks like he's having fun with his guys.
And as a player, he won, and so he knows how to win.
Right. He just looks like he's having a good time with his players and with his position.
And he's the kind of coach who loses his voice during the game.
Right. Right. When they did that halftime interview with him, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. He sounded like Tom Waits.
What are they doing in there?
I just told him it's a playoff game. Have fun. So, Mikey, I gotta publicly declare that I think I'm gonna go with root for Detroit this weekend.
That's okay.
As much as I love the 49ers, and as much as I that there's so much tradition with the Niners locked up in my heart from living down there for so long. It's just I nobody deserves to win.
No, they don't. There's no mercy.
But it would be so uplifting for the city of Detroit, a city that I've been to several times, know people from there, and the people that still live there, the people that have stayed in Detroit, the ones that aren't addicted to crack or whatever substance is the substance of the week. are good, hardy people. There's a there's
Yeah.
a um there's a thing about them. You know, they're tough, and they don't. It doesn't. They're tough in a way that's different from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're similar, but they're not connected.
Right. Pittsburgh is, that they've had a renaissance. Things have gotten better for Pittsburgh. There's a renaissance that probably is going to come to Detroit at some point, but it's not there quite yet.
It's still dominated by the industry that took it into the future, took it into the dumper, and now it's trying to take it out again.
Well, unfortunately, though, it's not. It is and it isn't, because that industry has kind of abandoned Detroit in many ways. Now they're still out in in different towns outside of Detroit. And General Motors is still in the Ren Center. So that is still going, but there's just a sauciness to it, a soul to Detroit, to the city, that is hard to find in other cities.
It's Motown after all.
Yeah, it's Motown. But it's not just Motown. It's Motown. It's Eminem. It's Mitch Ryder.
And the Detroit Wheels.
Yeah, the Detroit Wheels. It's Kid Rock. Even though I don't agree with him politically, there's still that there's that music scene that's there. And again, I go back to the people. Many people are the descendants of people that worked in the auto industry. And
Well, I'm proud of Detroit. The first game I ever saw, the first football game I ever saw, my dad took me to Kezar Stadium and we saw the Detroit Lions beat the 49ers. But I got to see Y.A. Tittle, Leo Namalini, Joe Arenas, Bob St. Clair, Billy Wilson, Joe the Jet Perry, Hugh the King McElhaney.
now, is that the 57 game?
I don't know what year it was, to tell you the truth. I'd have to
Because
go back and figure it
the
out.
last Detroit game, the last time that Detroit played for the NFC Championship was against the 49ers in 1957.
Well, this is just a regular season game at Kezar.
Regular season. All right. Well, I was wondering, maybe you got lucky and went to got to. That must have been an interesting place, because in those days,
wild place.
a lot of people that left Detroit and came out to California, and then you had the 49er fans.
Then you had the guys drinking Four Roses out of a half pint in front of us that got into it. It was
They're sold in every ballpark.
Kezar was a wild place, and you didn't have seats; you had benches.
Yeah. So I guess, Mikey, we're probably gonna be a little bit apart on this one. I hate to do it.
Well, Jared Goff deserves your support. The team has deserved your interest. And yesterday, I was rooting for Detroit. I wanted them to win.
Yeah, and
they wanted to win.
The
crowd was great.
Their best game yesterday, but they still figured out a way to win.
Yep, they put it together.
And that's the sign of a champion. I mean, listen, the 49ers are probably going to beat the piss out of them.
Well, I'll take it with one touchdown. That'll be plenty for me.
Yeah, I mean, they have so many weapons on that team. And
well, we hope Debo comes back. But Debo's hurt that shoulder now for the second time this year. And as you know, shoulders don't heal overnight.
Yeah, so it's going to be, but even without him, they still have enough weapons and a defense that could very possibly just, beat the crap, especially out, on their home turf.
And the great thing about the Niners yesterday was that or not yesterday, but Saturday, is that they took the ball away. And that's
Yeah.
something that I love. The offense can do many things. They're talented. They have weapons. They have the history. They have a great offensive coach. But I like it when you've got the ball and I take it away from you.
There's something that demoralizes a team that does that.
Yep.
There's something that they just didn't look the same after those interceptions.
No, they didn't.
It looked like you just popped their balloon, man. So yeah, it really was, I thought, really stuck a dagger um in the heart. Uh they just looked, yeah, they just and consequently the 49ers keyed off of those
Oh yeah.
interceptions.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, they really did. So Mikey, I'm gonna be in for Detroit. I know it's a bandwagon jumping thing,
It's a good thing to root for the Lions. They deserve it.
but somebody's got to do it, man. I know that true 49er fans, hardcore 49er fans, are not going to do what I did. But if I'm a hardcore fan, I'm a hardcore Jets fan. So maybe I have a little.
And you've suffered enough for that.
I heard. Wait, who was it? Who was I listening to yesterday or the day before? Oh, there's a piece on the internet. I should actually found it and queued it up. I thought it was great. Uh, Joe Scarborough of
Mhm.
MSNBC was comparing Donald Trump to the New York Jets.
That's terrible. I know the Jets have earned a lot of dismissive comparisons over the years.
And yeah, it was it kind of broke my heart a little bit,
Because
but
you
I got
thought,
what he was saying.
and do you agree?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but um, I hate to say it, but uh,
I don't know what the timing is going to be, but Trump's legal decisions are all going to come one after the other here, and I think it's going to be pretty damaging, except for
um,
the cult members who don't care.
right, let me see if I can find this here a second because it really was uh, Joe. Trump has a movement, but it has the general election success of the New York Jets. Let me see if I can punch this up so you can hear it. It was really, I just, I'm one of those guys that I sat there and I'm listening to it and I'm going, "Geez."
One thing I hate
Uh,
about news sites is I have to watch a commercial about installing a new shower before I get to hear the piece I want.
yes, from may I just say the maybe what has turned into the worst pitch person on television right now,
And she's there every 10 minutes.
and
I'm
somebody,
sorry, she's there every 10 minutes? She's there every
yeah,
10 minutes?
every 10 minutes, she's got that emphasis
Reverse
when she does
reverse
with her voice.
inflection. Make
That's
it sing, give some inflection to it, and do it completely
oh my
ass
god,
backwards and upside
please,
down.
honey, I don't care how good you look, or how what TV show you have that shows people how to flip house. I don't even know what she does. I think she's a house flipper, right?
I don't
Um,
know.
but she is truly
The
she's
worst.
she's getting into the Mike Lindell class.
She is like strychnine in your breakfast.
Yeah, sorry. Listen. I know I'm not one to talk because my voice, but yeah, if you get a chance to, I'm not going to play it because it's 9 minutes long. But if you get a chance, go on YouTube and just put in Scarborough Trump Jets, and it'll come up on your search. Um, it was just one of the funniest things I'd heard in a long, long time, and it really compared. the the MAGA movement to the Jets. So, but I'm gonna I'm hoping to see the Detroit Lions.
Well, they're a good team. They're a magic team. They have done what the Lions haven't been able to do for a generation, 2 generations. And I'm reluctant to root for anybody who's a Ford executive. I'm still mad at Henry for the way he conducted himself and the type of man he was, despite what he
Yeah,
did with the Ford.
Henry has
Henry was
Henry
a dark, angry man.
taken a lot of heat, and rightly so. Now, let me ask you this: if the Detroit Lions do not win on Sunday, will I be able to come back to the 49er fold
Sure, we're
for
welcoming.
for for the Super Bowl? Because I mean, I'm going to root for I'm going to root for the Detroit Lions, but I kind of expect that the 49ers are going to win. Uh,
Yeah, you can come back. You still got your clothing, you still got your jacket, your t-shirts, and your hat. You'll be
yeah,
fine.
yeah, I still have my 40 effing Niners T-shirt. I still have somewhere here the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus singing the 49er fight song.
I love you, 49ers.
We love the 49ers. Da, 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 da. We hail to Joe Montana. Well, thank you. I appreciate the fact that you're as head of the Mikey and Vinnie 49er fan club.
We
I
gotta we gotta we gotta have wiggle room because that's the kind of sport it is. It comes and goes. You're happy, you're sad.
Yeah.
Everything's going great. All of a sudden, you're 3 and out. You don't know what the hell happened. You gotta be limber.
See now, if you were a Freedom Caucus Republican,
Oh,
I'd be impeached already.
I wouldn't forgive you, and I would send the death squads to your house to threaten you and your pet.
You'd send Marjorie Taylor Greene to have an affair or something. I mean, it would be horrible.
She's coming, but she hasn't showered in 2 weeks.
How could you tell?
It's just her way. You can tell.
When somebody doesn't look like they smell good, it's
It's an indication that perhaps you're seeing what is actually there.
if I look at Lauren Boebert or I look at Matt Gaetz, even if I look at I'm trying to think of another MAGA idiot.
The woman from New York who's trying to be vice
Elise
president.
Stefanik, yeah. I mean, they look like they've showered. They look clean. I mean, you could probably stand next to them,
You could
and it
stand
would,
next to her.
and it
There
would,
might be other negatives, but maybe not the smell.
yeah, it wouldn't. Yeah, there would be other negatives, but yeah, I don't think they would smell bad. Um, I just get this smell of stale tobacco
In her
when I
hair.
look at Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
I get this uh you ever go pick up a friend when they've been out on a jag for a few days
Yeah.
and they got that's
Or you go to a Motel 6 and it's a smoking room and the whole place smells like Chesterfield.
yeah, yeah, it smells like piss, liquor, and cigarette smoke.
Yep.
Um,
And bed bugs.
yeah, it kind of, and every once in a while you get like a stale pizza that somebody left in a bottom drawer in
Oh yeah.
housekeeping. See,
That's to be expected.
that's kind of what you would imagine MTG whiffs like when you get up close to her.
She's not careful with her amenities.
With her hygiene. She failed hygiene in high school, and she never took a remedial course.
And from there, it never got better.
It never got better. Nobody taught her what's supposed to be changed weekly, monthly, daily.
Your roots are showing. I'll do it myself tonight when I get home.
Yeah, I'll pick up a can of Just for Men on
Yeah.
or the I still have a couple of cases of that Ron Popeil uh,
Or just
spray stuff.
spray on your hair. No one will ever know.
Remember that stuff he used to make? He used to spray it.
It was called flat black paint, and he just changed the label.
Krylon. Um, yeah, I think uh, MTG uh, probably has all of those qualities just sitting right there waiting for you.
She's the reason that Hunter Biden left the room. I'm going to talk. Oh,
That was the best, man. That when she opened her yap and he just got up and left.
it's my turn to talk. Hey, Hunter, come back.
Yeah, here's a dose of reality. There are some people who just get up and walk away from you, and not give you the time of day, whether you have that little congressional pin on or not. And before we go, we have to
Yes.
bid adieu to the governor of Florida, who looks like he's going to be stuck as the governor of Florida for another few years.
He's outside of Disney World this morning, harassing employees going in the employee door with a broom. He's swinging a broom at them.
Well, he's going to have to go do something. He's not going to stay as governor of Florida because
No,
they're going to do whatever they can do to get rid of him now.
2 words: talk radio. That's all. That's all he's got facing him.
And I don't know that.
WABC will give him a job.
Yeah, and I don't think that Trump is going to pick him as his vice president.
No, they're
I think
mutually
that's what he's
exclusive.
hoping for, but I think you
Not
could
going to
pretty
happen.
much lay money down that neither Ron DeSanitation, because he ran a garbage campaign, or Nikki Haley is going to get picked as one of Trump's running mates.
Nikki Haley, her. I know I've made a lot of comments about her hand movements, but her whole body now is taking on the inhuman actions of. The funny thing about zombies is, they're zombies because they don't walk right, they don't move right, they don't process information quite the way they used to when they were alive.
Right.
And Nikki Haley, everything she does, all her movements are awkward. All of them say to the casual observer, that looks inhuman. That doesn't look. That's not the way people move. What's wrong with their hands? What's wrong with their body?
But what do you? Yeah, what do you do now? Because not that I'm rooting for any Republican, but the only thing. I mean, I guess she's really. I guess if you admit reality, she doesn't have a shot.
The worst thing she can say about Trump is he was a good president when he was president, but he's the wrong man for the job now. That's about as
Yeah,
critical as she gets.
yeah. I really wish Christie wouldn't have dropped out, or I wish he would have caught fire more. It just shows you how corrupted and misguided the Republican Party is. I mean, it's really what a mess.
It's foul. That's the problem. Whatever they turn their hand to, it becomes foul.
It's really scary. In many ways. Not that I'm a fan of the Republican Party, but you do want to have at least uh, a viable two-party system.
I'm sorry, we don't have that anymore.
But we don't. I don't
We
like
do
the idea
not.
of having a one-party system.
And
I
I'm
think
looking at people who apparently are from this planet standing in whatever state the primary happens to be in. First it was Iowa, now it's New Hampshire. And they're speaking intelligently, but the words they're saying don't make any sense. Well, I love Donald Trump and I'm voting for him, and are there any negatives? Not that I can see. No. What negative? What do you mean? What's your point? What I don't understand your question. Negative what?
yeah, I can't reconcile in my mind how people, fairly intelligent people. I mean, New Hampshire is not an uneducated place.
Well, they got dressed in the morning and managed to get out on the street to be interviewed. They got that far.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, I've been to New Hampshire several times. I used to go up there a lot when I was younger, either on the way to Maine or just go up there as for the hell of it. And
Drive your Hellcat 130 miles an hour through New
no, not up
Hampshire.
there. No, that's yeah, it's a little different there. The roads are smaller,
Yeah.
but I've definitely been up the, gotten off and gone up Route 1 and been to Nashua and to Concord, and I'm trying to think of what other town I've been through. Been to a few places up there, and the people seem to always be intelligent. What's the is it Dartmouth? That's the big university in New Hampshire. Um, I'm trying to think of who I know that went. Jim Beattie, former pitcher for the Mariners and the Mets, I believe, went to Dartmouth.
And they're flinty New Englanders.
And
Usually we credit flinty New Englanders with having more on the ball.
Yeah, they just seem to be a bunch of people that are reasonable, intelligent, involved, care about their where they are. I mean, I know they got the live free or die thing on the license plate, but I don't know that many of them would die just to live free. But they might. I wouldn't put it past them. And yet, I mean, if there's a state that really shows, I mean, Iowa, you expect Iowa to go for Donald Trump.
Because they have an evangelical problem.
I mean, some of the Mormons that were going to Utah never made it out of Iowa on that trip from New York.
Iowa could be a tough town on Mormons.
But New Hampshire, I mean, it just doesn't figure that people there would be taken in by.
I think it's all the tradition of New Hampshire of having a working class that is never going to be anything but a working class. That is their lot in life, generation after generation. There's no upward mobility movement. You can't educate yourself out of the problems that they have in New Hampshire. If you're part of the cap-wearing, plaid jacket underclass, you're never going to have.
I don't know.
You're never going to have what they have in Massachusetts, for instance.
Yeah, I don't know that I 100% agree with that, but I think it's more likely that it would be a bigger struggle for you to make that jump, where in Massachusetts it's a lot easier.
Tell me, New Hampshire, what does flinty mean? Does that just mean you're poor? Yeah, we got nothing. But we have, do you have prospects? No, don't have those. So it's Trump, or it's Trump and or nothing. You got food trucks that come by and sell Mexican food? Nope.
No, but we have clam chowder trucks. We have lobster roll trucks. We have food trucks. They just don't sell a lot of Mexican food.
That's what they need. They need a little pep in their diet.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you can buy, a red clam chowder up there. It's pretty damn good.
I should hope.
You can get oysters up there, New Hampshire, and get yourself. You can also get you get postage stamps.
That's comforting.
They used to have the Littleton Stamp Company, which you'll probably remember this when I tell you, used to advertise in the comic books. They used to have those little ads that would say, "Be a stamp collector. Send 10 cents to P.O. Box, yada, 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 Littleton, New Hampshire." And you would send them that dime taped to an index card with your address on it.
10
And
cents in
2 or
coin.
3 weeks, you would get a sampling of stamps that would come back to you. And then you would get um, sent for your approval of the stamps
Hmm.
from different countries. And so many people, I believe,
Do you
probably
remember? Do you
started
remember
this
the? Do you remember the? Do you remember the New Hampshire address?
I know it was in Littleton,
There you go.
the Littleton Stamp Company. And getting I remember getting a Littleton, a little envelope from them, and there was some stamps in it. And I remember immediately taking one of the stamps, sticking it on an envelope that I was sending to a TV station for some reason. I mean, I was all of about 8 when this was going on.
Probably
Uh,
a letter of outrage about Captain Satellite.
yeah, something like that. And putting that stamp on the letter and going down the corner where the mailbox was on 83rd Street and 32nd Avenue and dropping the thing in the mailbox. And I always supposed that it got there
It went somewhere. We'll never know where.
because it never came back to the house. Although I don't know that I ever heard from the general or maybe I sent it to a ball player or something like, it's some like thing where you're a kid, you write a letter to a baseball player, please send me your autograph. I love to watch you play, Mr. Killebrew. Thank you, so, that kind of thing. And many times they would send you back their autograph, or the clubhouse guy would sign something and send it to you. This little idiot kid from Jackson Heights isn't going to know.
He sent me a stamp from Malaysia that's worth $20,000.
That's how Harmon Killebrew got into collecting.
Well, he changed his name to Harmon. He was Billy Killebrew, but he was on the run from the cops, so he changed his first name to Harmon. They never found him. We're looking for Billy Killebrew. Well, I'm Harmon Killebrew. You can't be looking for me.
Yeah, but it's not me.
What about that stamp? I got no idea what you're talking about.
Kid Jackson Heights called us and complained that he sent you an envelope 6 months ago with a stamp from Rhodesia on it.
You sent him a pet snake that's poisonous. What kind of trick is that?
There you go. And that started the life of crime for Billy Killebrew. All right, before we go, Bayside, Michael.
Yes.
I have it in front of me. I'm widening out the
map.
The map here, the section. And so okay. I'm looking at Bayside and so we have generally Bayside is like Utopia Parkway, Clearview Expressway up to the Cross Island Parkway, east to west, and then north to south. It's pretty much from the Long Island Expressway down to Bay Terrace, which is 26th Avenue, is probably the lowest numbered avenue in Bayside. If you go into Bay Terrace, which is a big development by the Throgs Neck Bridge and the Cross Island Parkway, you have Bell Boulevard, you have the 200 streets, but I think the lowest avenue in there is 18th. So to go to 7th, matter of fact, even if you go to Whitestone, there's a 7th Avenue in Whitestone.
Well, in my imagination, Donald Fagen is waiting in Manhattan.
Yeah,
for someone to connect with him.
Based on that guy, artistic license.
The guy or girl was late at Bayside, wasn't going to make it, so there was nothing he could do, and he pointed his car down 7th Avenue.
So he was probably waiting, somewhere in the East Village, the West Village, I should say, or Chelsea.
Yeah, I was thinking Chelsea.
Chelsea Hotel is on 23rd between 7th and 8th, I think.
Just about. Certainly in that neighborhood.
Yeah, so it could be. I mean, maybe that's what he's using as a reference point. Um, but it's an area I know well. I used to ride my bike out there a lot. I used to go to former major leaguer Tony D. Phillips sports store, which was on Francis Lewis Boulevard.
And what bay are we talking about?
We are talking about, well, what bay would it be? Because it's really, Little Neck Bay.
Little Neck Bay.
Yeah, Little
You
Neck
got
Bay is kind of a continuation of the north part of the East River. So the East River wraps around Astoria, Jackson Heights, Flushing, Corona, and then really officially ends, I believe, at the Throgs Neck Bridge.
you got Little Neck, Middle Neck, and then Throgs.
Well, you
Three
got
sizes of the necks.
Little Neck and Great Neck. Little Neck is home of the clams, but it's out by Fort Totten. So if you were to go to Fort Totten and look, you have Little Bay, which is the continuation of the East River, and that rubs up against Fort Totten. And then Willets Point, which is right at Fort Totten at the end there. And then on the other side of Fort Totten, you have Little Neck Bay. And then on the eastern side of that, you have Great Neck.
Would I like living on the water there?
No longer in New York City. You're out past the county line. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Would I like living on the water there?
Yeah. Well, yeah, depending on where you were living. If you were living in Great Neck, you couldn't afford it. If you were on, I always thought that the part of, let's see, where could you live? You could live in Bayside. You couldn't live in Whitestone on the water because, well, I guess you could, yeah. You could up there, but Robert Moses made sure that the Cross Island Parkway straddled Little Neck Bay all the way through Whitestone, Bayside, and going south.
Robert Moses took the fun out of New York, didn't he?
Moses, well, yes and no. I mean, there's things he did that were really good and things that were horrible, but it's the closest that any major city probably came to a dictator.
Yeah. He drove a Packard dictator.
Yeah, for many years, he dictated where the roads went, and nobody challenged him. The only time he lost his power really was after the 64-65 World's Fair. That was his last great accomplishment. After that, he ran into a bunch of problems trying to get a freeway across Manhattan.
Oh, God. That was a bad idea.
Well, actually, it was a good idea if you wanted to move traffic. But by that time, the winds had changed. And, people were now thinking more along the terms of mass transit than they were bringing your car into the city. I mean, the concept of what he wanted to do was was not bad. But and today you might be able to accomplish it in a different way. But in the '60s, early '60s, people had enough of freeways.
And they'd
People
stop
were like,
moving. The magic
"Yeah,
of
we
moving
got
out of Manhattan didn't make any sense. Why would I move out of Manhattan to go live in Brooklyn or Queens when Manhattan is the most beautiful city in the world? Why shouldn't I live here?
yeah." Um,
I mean, it's not
so
Paris, but it's still a remarkable
so
collection of
yeah, I
energy
think
and
you would
buildings.
enjoy living along the water in the few places that you can. Um, you know, there's some places along Little Neck Bay. I know that there are houses there out by Douglaston, and I know that down in Whitestone, by the Whitestone Bridge, there's some really nice. Matter of fact, we used to park on uh, that first street there by the Whitestone Bridge. There's a park there, and you could you know park there right next to the bay, and there's houses right across the street from that. So
What's
and
that
some really
village on the? I guess it's on the Harlem River. It's like a fishing village in north of town.
no, it's a really residential. It's a single family house residential area. Um, Whitestone was many years ago, I believe, a fishing village. If you go down by Powell's Cove Boulevard, um, which is a street that kind of goes along the point, and there's actually like still a couple of well, I don't know if there is now. When I was a kid, um, you'd go to Powell's Cove, and there were shipyards
Hmm.
and fishing boats
Yeah,
and stuff like that. And then down the end of that street, right on the corner of let me look, like 149th Street and Second Avenue in Whitestone was the CYO pool. The Whitestone, there was two pools, Whitestone and Cresthaven,
did you have
and
to be Catholic to swim there?
that's where we went swimming. Yeah. Oh, you didn't have to be Catholic. You could be anybody and go swimming. Um, Although I got to admit, I don't remember seeing a lot of black kids. I don't know what I was kind of young, um, but I do remember I got to go because I went to CYO camp one summer at Cresthaven, which was down the block, um, and it was a cleaner pool. Astoria Pool was a zoo, but it was a
Breeding
nickel to
ground.
get in. Uh, Whitestone was, I believe, 50 cents to get in, but Um, but it was definitely there was a grassy area, and you could park your towel on the grassy area. There was a water slide that went
Oh yeah.
down, well, a little slide. I mean, nothing like you see today, but just a metal slide.
And there's always a little kid willing to stand at the bottom of the slide and just watch like a 300-pounder come down and blow him into the water.
Standing there all day watching. There was always some kid standing there, just
Waiting for his own demise.
just waiting for and then eventually there would be some 12 or 13-year-old who would stick his hand up as he was going by and knock the kid down. It's New York.
Of course. You must expect these things.
And they did, and they had a concession stand, and I remember I think a soda was 15, no, a hot dog was 15 cents and a soda was a dime.
Big spenders.
Hey, you know what, for 75 cents you had yourself a day.
Quite a day.
Quite a day. And it was always the hot red-headed Irish girls that would go to the Whitestone pool. I remember. I definitely remember that.
And their dad had a Packard dictator.
Their dad probably had a country that was a dictator of a country. All right, man. I guess we've we've been yapping today, man.
Yeah, we exhausted all the topics that we brought up, including rebuilding the Studebaker and calling it a Packard. You can't do that.
We've gone from that. We talked about Ernie Kovacs. We talked about the playoffs over the weekend.
Cousin Brucey,
Dan Ingram, Alex Bennett. I mean, we've been all over the place. Don Sherwood.
Donnie Babe.
Don Sherwood and Al McGuire. Boy, we just touched all the bases today.
We cut the roof off a Chevrolet without anybody's permission. Never find out who actually owned that
ran
car.
Into somebody, Chris Davis, that remembered us doing it. And you weren't even there, and you got blamed for it.
I got credit.
You were on vacation. All right, so what do you say we get together on Wednesday morning and try to do this all over again?
I'll do it if you promise it'll be a wacky Wednesday.
Well, if it's anything like this ferociously interesting Monday that we did.
Morose Monday. It's not my fault. It's raining in L.A. I get this way.
It's raining here too, but we're used to it. See, that's the thing. We're conditioned here.
After 3 winters in Wenatchee, I said, that's it. No more winter. So this is going to have to pass. This is going to have to be as wintry as I get.
I got to tell you, Michael, I'm kind of getting there being here. You know, I don't know how many more winters I could do this.
Winter's colder in Seattle than it used to be.
Yeah, it is. And I don't remember it ever being as cold as it's been the last 3 winters up here.
And I like sweaters, but I also like shorts. So there you go.
Well, I don't mind wearing a sweater or a sweatshirt if I'm wearing shorts. Keeps my body warm. I don't care if my legs don't bother me if they're cold.
No, the body reacts differently.
Yeah, but if my torso is cold,
we have operational problems. Yeah, I know.
We got something to talk about. Where'd you go? Well, there goes Mikey. I don't know where he went, but he went somewhere. So we will catch up with you on Wednesday morning at 10:10. If the Lord's willing, the creek don't rise. Until then, peace, love, and Manischewitz, baby. And I'll say it for Michael Knight. What a wine. Have a good one. Thank you for listening.